I never imagined that the person I loved most in the world could betray me in the way Emily did. Our story started like a dream. College sweethearts, the kind of couple everyone envied. We met at a small coffee shop on campus. She was wearing a vintage leather jacket, her dark hair spilling over her shoulders, and her laugh was infectious. From the moment we spoke, something clicked. Our first year together was almost perfect. Late night talks, weekend road trips, endless cups of coffee, and silly arguments that ended in laughter. I thought I knew everything about her. Every little quirk, every hope and fear. She told me she wanted to travel the world someday, and I promised to be by her side. We got married after graduation in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Our little apartment was cluttered but cozy. I worked long hours at a startup, and Emily was a junior graphic designer at an agency. Life was hectic but full of promise. But as time went on, things started to shift. It was gradual. The little things at first. Emily would come home smelling different, sometimes a bit of unfamiliar perfume. She started locking her phone, something she never did before. I noticed her texting more late at night, and the tone of her messages was often secretive. One evening, I found a lipstick-stained wine glass in the sink. When I asked her about it, she said she'd had drinks with a female coworker. I wanted to believe her. Maybe I was just being paranoid. The cracks grew deeper when she started spending weekends working late. Our conversations felt strained, and the warmth between us faded. I felt like I was losing her, but I didn't know how to reach her anymore. One day, I found an address on her notes app, a hotel a few miles from our home. My heart pounded. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself maybe it was for a conference or a friend's party. Then the truth hit me harder than I ever imagined. I decided to follow her. That Friday night, I waited in my car near the hotel, heart racing. The city lights blurred through my windshield as I tried to steady my breath. I saw Emily's car pull in, but it wasn't alone for long. A man stepped out of the shadows. Ryan, my best friend since childhood. The same Ryan who had been my wingman in college, who attended every birthday party, who I trusted with my life. Emily smiled when she saw him. They hugged, and then they kissed. That moment shattered me. I stayed hidden, watching as they entered the hotel together. The world I knew, my foundation, crumbled in seconds. The following days were a haze. I confronted Emily, hoping for an explanation, but the look in her eyes was distant, cold. "I'm sorry," she whispered once. "It just happened." I asked Ryan why he betrayed me. He said it was complicated, that feelings developed when I wasn't around, that it wasn't planned but unavoidable. I felt betrayed twice, once by the woman I vowed to love, and again by the man I considered my brother. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering where I went wrong. The memories of our life together played like a cruel movie. Every laugh, every touch, every whispered, "I love you." I had to decide what to do next. The next morning, after a restless night filled with anger and heartbreak, I made my decision. I wasn't going to let this betrayal stay hidden in shadows. If Emily and Ryan thought they could sneak behind my back and ruin everything, they were wrong. It was time for the truth to come out. I started by gathering proof. Screenshots of messages Emily had tried to delete, photos of them together that I managed to take secretly. I wasn't proud of the sneaking around, but I needed evidence that no one could dismiss. First, I told a few close friends, people I trusted, everything. I showed them the messages and the photos. Their faces turned from shock to sadness, then to anger on my behalf. The support I received was overwhelming. They didn't judge me. Instead, they reminded me I didn't deserve this. Word spread faster than I expected. By the end of the day, most of our social circle knew about the affair. Messages came flooding in, some offering sympathy, others sharing their own painful stories of betrayal. I wasn't alone in this, and that realization gave me strength. But the hardest part was yet to come. Confronting Emily and Ryan in public. At a mutual friend's gathering the following weekend, I showed up with a calm resolve I didn't know I had. When Emily arrived, the room's atmosphere shifted. People whispered, some avoided eye contact, others stared with quiet judgment. I stood up and addressed the room, my voice steady but filled with emotion. I want to be honest with all of you. Emily and Ryan have been betraying my trust for months. I have proof, and I want everyone here to know the truth. Gasps echoed around the room. Emily's face flushed red, and Ryan looked away, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Why?" someone asked from the crowd. I shook my head. I don't have all the answers, but I know this. I deserved better. None of us should accept betrayal as normal. That night, I didn't just expose their lies, I took back my power. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Ryan faced the consequences of their actions. Many friends distanced themselves from them. Emily left her job, unable to face the whispers. Ryan tried to apologize, but I had nothing left to forgive. For me, this was a painful but necessary purge. I was surrounded by those who stood by me. Friends, family, even new faces who admired my courage to stand up and speak out. The betrayal still stung, but the shame and loneliness began to fade. After the initial storm of anger and public confrontation had settled, I found myself facing a void I hadn't expected. Exposing the affair brought a rush of relief, but it didn't fill the space Emily once occupied in my life. The nights were quieter, lonelier, and my mind constantly replayed questions. Why? Why did she betray me? Was there something I missed? One evening, I reached out to Emily. I told her I wanted to talk. Not to argue, but to understand. Surprisingly, she agreed. When we met at a small cafe, the air between us was thick with unspoken tension. She looked different, tired, remorseful, and fragile. For the first time, I saw not just the person who had hurt me, but someone struggling with her own demons. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, eyes glossy. "It just happened. I felt lost, ignored, like I was fading away in our relationship." Her words hit me harder than any betrayal. We had been drifting for months. Busy schedules, silent dinners, and avoided conversations. I realized I'd been so focused on my work and my own stress that I hadn't noticed her loneliness growing beside me. We talked for hours. She shared feelings of isolation and confusion, and I listened without interrupting. I told her how her actions shattered my trust and how rebuilding it would be the hardest thing we'd ever face. "It won't be easy," I said, "but if we want to try, we need honesty. No secrets. We have to face everything. The pain, the doubts, everything." Emily nodded, tears spilling down. "I'm willing to try if you are." In the weeks that followed, we started couples therapy. It was uncomfortable at times, digging up raw emotions, but it forced us to communicate in ways we never had before. Slowly, the walls between us began to crack. Rebuilding trust wasn't a straight path. There were days filled with hope and others clouded by fear, but with each step, we learned more about ourselves and what we truly wanted. One night after a long session, Emily took my hand and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I squeezed her hand back. "Thank you for being honest now." The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt something like hope. After weeks of painful conversations and therapy sessions, just as I was trying to rebuild some trust with Emily, something unexpected happened that tested my resolve in a way I never imagined. One evening, I was at a small bar downtown, trying to clear my head after a particularly tough therapy session. The weight of betrayal and the slow progress in my marriage pressed down heavily. I wasn't looking for distraction, but fate had other plans. A woman approached me. She was confident, with a mischievous smile and eyes that seemed to see right through my guarded exterior. Her name was Rachel. She struck up a casual conversation, teasing me lightly, making jokes, and gradually breaking down the walls I'd built around myself. At first, I resisted. I was married, trying to fix my relationship, and didn't want to make things worse. But Rachel's charm, her warmth, it was intoxicating. More than that, it awakened something dark inside me, a desire for revenge. A silent voice in my head whispered, if she betrayed me, why shouldn't I feel the same freedom? It started innocently, a lingering touch, a few drinks shared late into the night. But that night ended with us crossing a line I never intended to approach. The guilt hit me like a truck afterward, but oddly, it also numbed some of the pain I'd been carrying. For days, I was torn. Part of me hated what I had done. Another part felt alive for the first time in months. I wondered if Emily would ever find out. Would it hurt her as much as she hurt me? Or was it just a meaningless act of self-destruction? Rachel kept reaching out, and I found myself pulled into her world, escaping the heavy cloud hanging over my marriage. But deep down, I knew this path could only lead to more heartbreak. As days turned into weeks, Rachel and I grew closer, our secret meetings becoming more frequent and intense. The thrill of hiding our affair gave me a twisted sense of power I hadn't felt in months. Every stolen moment felt like a rebellion against the pain Emily had caused me. Rachel was different from Emily in many ways. Bold, spontaneous, and unapologetically honest. With her, I didn't have to pretend. I could laugh, be reckless, and forget the weight of my crumbling marriage. But alongside the excitement, a darker feeling lingered beneath the surface. Guilt, shame, and a growing fear that this would all blow up in my face. Meanwhile, Emily seemed oblivious to my betrayal. She was wrapped up in her own world, maybe still healing, or perhaps distracted by her own regrets. Our conversations became colder, more distant. The love we once shared felt like a fading memory. One night, Rachel invited me to a secluded cabin outside the city, a place where no one could reach us. The fire crackled warmly, casting flickering shadows on her face. As we sat close, the silence between us was heavy but comfortable. I know this isn't just about revenge, Rachel whispered, her voice soft yet firm. You're hurting, but do you really want to destroy everything you had, or are you just lost? Her words cut deeper than any argument with Emily ever had. For the first time, I questioned if I was running away from pain or chasing something real. But before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. We need to talk. My heart pounded. The illusion of control was slipping, and the consequences of my actions were closing in fast. I stared at Emily's message for a long time, the weight of those words pressing down on me, but instead of replying, I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket. Rachel noticed the hesitation in my eyes, but didn't ask. Instead, she reached out and took my hand, pulling me closer. That night, wrapped in her arms, I tried to push away the guilt gnawing at my conscience. Every laugh we shared, every stolen kiss felt like a small victory, a defiant act against the hurt Emily had caused. Rachel was my escape, my secret refuge. Days turned into weeks, and the double life became harder to maintain. I lied to Emily about late work nights, skipped calls, and erased texts. I felt like I was living two lives, one full of tension and regret, the other filled with reckless passion and false hope. But the truth has a way of surfacing. One evening, as I returned from a clandestine dinner with Rachel, my phone buzzed relentlessly. It was Emily, sending messages filled with confusion and pain. She sensed something was wrong. My heart ached, torn between two worlds. That night, Emily called. Her voice cracked as she asked the question I'd been dreading. Is there someone else? I froze. Words caught in my throat. Could I finally confess or continue the lie? Before I could respond, Rachel's name flashed on the screen. An incoming call I couldn't ignore. The tension broke like a wave crashing over me. I knew this was the moment everything would change. You took a deep breath, the phone trembling slightly in your hand. It was time to face the truth. You pressed the answer button, and Emily's voice filled the room, shaky but full of hope. I need to be honest, you began, your voice barely above a whisper. There is someone else. I'm so sorry. The silence on the other end was deafening, then tears, quiet sobs that broke your heart more than any anger could. Emily's voice cracked as she asked questions. Why, when, and how long? You tried to explain, stumbling over your words, but the weight of your guilt made it hard to speak. Over the next few days, the house felt cold and empty. Emily moved out temporarily, needing space to think. You were left alone with your regrets, replaying every moment that led to this breaking point. Meanwhile, Rachel was furious when you ended things, calling you selfish and cruel, but you knew you had to fix what you'd broken with Emily, even if it seemed impossible. You started attending couples therapy, hoping to rebuild the trust shattered by your betrayal. The road was long and painful, filled with tears, tough conversations, and moments of doubt. Yet, somewhere between the hurt and healing, you found a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, love could survive even the deepest betrayals. After Emily moved out, the loneliness was suffocating. But instead of fully ending things with Rachel, you found yourself tangled deeper in the web of lies. You convinced yourself it was just payback. Emily had betrayed you first, so you deserved a taste of the same. You started splitting your time between the two women, juggling secret meetings and whispered conversations. With Rachel, there was the thrill of something forbidden, the excitement that made you feel alive again. With Emily, it was complicated. The guilt mixed with lingering love, hope, and a burning desire for revenge. Each time you looked at Emily, you saw the pain behind her eyes, but you also saw her betrayal. With Rachel, there was passion, but no future. You lied, you manipulated, trying to keep both worlds separate, but the cracks were beginning to show. Late at night, alone, you felt the weight of your choices crushing you. Was this really justice? Or were you just losing yourself in a cycle of hurt and deceit? The more you juggled, the more impossible it became to keep the facade. Messages got crossed, emotions tangled, and the threat of everything collapsing grew closer every day. You decided honesty was the only way out of the mess you'd created. The weight of the lies was crushing, and living a double life was tearing you apart. One evening, you called Emily first. Your voice was shaky, but you told her everything. About Rachel, about your pain, about why you had done it. You expected anger, tears, maybe the end, but instead there was silence, then a long, heavy sigh. Emily admitted she had made mistakes too, that her betrayal was born out of loneliness and fear. You talked for hours, peeling back layers of hurt and regret. It was the hardest conversation you'd ever had, but it was the start of something real, raw, painful, but honest. Next, you met Rachel. The look on her face when you told her was a mix of shock and disbelief. She was hurt, but she appreciated the truth. Rachel told you she never wanted to be the other woman, and that she deserved someone fully present. From there, the path was unclear. You had broken trust with both women, and now the challenge was to figure out if there was a way forward, together or apart. You chose to start fresh with Rachel, hoping she could be the new beginning you both needed. You understood that rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy. Rachel had every right to be cautious, and you were prepared to prove yourself day by day. You began spending more time with her, being honest about your past mistakes and your intentions moving forward. Rachel appreciated the transparency and started to open up, sharing her own fears and hopes. For the first time in months, you felt a fragile but real connection growing. Meanwhile, you kept your distance from Emily, respecting her decision to heal on her own terms. It was painful, but you knew it was necessary. You realized that some wounds couldn't be rushed, and that sometimes love means letting go. Rachel and you started creating new memories. Quiet dinners, long walks, conversations deep into the night. You felt yourself becoming a better partner, learning from your mistakes. The shadow of betrayal still lingered, but you were committed to moving forward, step by step. Yet despite this new start, you couldn't fully escape the guilt and the memories of what had been broken. As you tried to build something new with Rachel, the past you thought was behind you suddenly caught up. One evening, you overheard a conversation. Emily and Rachel had met. It wasn't by accident. They had connected, shared their pain, their anger, and their sense of betrayal. Instead of turning against each other, they found strength in unity. Both women decided that you couldn't get away with what you had done. They planned to confront you together, to expose your lies, and make sure you understood the consequences of your actions. When the day came, they invited you to meet. Emily's calm and Rachel's fierce determination evident in their eyes. You realized this wasn't just about forgiveness or reconciliation anymore. They were ready to take control, to rewrite the story you had so carelessly broken. The three of you sat down, tension thick in the air. They laid out their feelings openly. The betrayal, the hurt, the disappointment. You listened, for once fully realizing the depth of the damage caused by your choices. But instead of breaking, you found yourself strangely admiring their strength and solidarity. For the first time, you saw yourself not as a victim or a wronged party, but as the one who had to face the truth and earn whatever future was left. You chose to defend yourself, trying to explain and justify your actions. As Emily and Rachel stared at you, waiting for your words, you took a deep breath and began. You explained how hurt and betrayed you felt when you found out about Emily's affair. That pain twisted inside you, blurring your judgment, and led you down a path you never intended to walk. You told them that your own mistakes were born out of that desperation, not from lack of care, but from a broken heart seeking revenge and relief. You tried to shift some blame onto the circumstances. The late nights, the loneliness, the miscommunication that festered like a wound. You pleaded for understanding, saying that everyone makes mistakes, and that you wanted nothing more than to fix things. Emily's eyes flashed with anger. So your pain justifies hurting both of us? She spat. Rachel's jaw tightened, her voice cold. You think excuses erase betrayal. You realized quickly that your words weren't healing wounds. They were reopening them. The room grew heavier with silence, the weight of disappointment settling like a thick fog. Despite your attempts to explain, the damage was clear. Both women knew your story, but it wasn't enough to make the pain disappear. You chose to accept the consequences and walk away, understanding that trust might never be restored. The silence between you, Emily, and Rachel was suffocating. You looked at both women, their faces marked with pain and resolve. The moment was heavy with the weight of everything broken. With a steady voice, you admitted your faults openly. I can't ask you to forgive me. I don't expect a second chance anymore. What I did was wrong, and I have to live with that. Maybe the best thing now is to step back and let you both heal. Emily's eyes shimmered with tears, but she nodded slightly. Rachel's expression softened just a little, as if respecting your honesty, even if it hurt. You turned to leave, feeling the sting of loss, but also a strange relief. Sometimes love doesn't mean holding on. It means knowing when to let go. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was yours to walk alone now. As you walked away, the memories of what was and what could have been lingered. The scars of betrayal and broken trust were deep, but maybe, just maybe, time could mend what words couldn't.